Welcome to the REI Foundation Podcast, where we cover all the steps and strategies to make your real estate dreams a reality. Now your hosts, Jason and Pili.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the REI Foundation Podcast with Jason and Pili. Today, we welcome the awesome Sve Pavic. Welcome, Sve.
Hello. Hey, guys. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm awesome. Thank you guys for having me on this show, and I'm excited to drop some knowledge bombs for your listeners.
Oh, we can't wait. But
fantastic.
Before we jump into all the awesomeness, give us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so my name is Sve Pavic. I'm 29 years old right now, and I'm a seven-figure real estate investor, so own over $1.4 million in rental properties. And I bought my first property when I was 24, and I was able to quit my job by the age of 28. And the crazy thing about all of this is I did it without using any of my own money through small multifamily room rentals, which, we can talk a little bit about today. And so now I just live, the laptop freedom lifestyle, just like you guys and a lot of your listeners either do or hope to do, and, share knowledge in the real estate investing space.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us. So, Sve, how did you get started in real estate?
What was it about being 24 and finding that first property? What really set the tone?
Yeah. And I think, I come from a millennial generation. And so, as a millennial, I think that a lot of people are realizing the fact of going to university, getting a day job, and, retiring when you're 60 or whatever that would be, is just that whole concept is flawed, but it doesn't work well in this day and age. It worked well for the baby boomers, but not so much for us millennials. And so I was in university, and at that time I knew that I wanted to be, entrepreneur, business owner. I didn't know what the right vehicle was. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad book, which, it's the breakthrough book because it gives you the foundational knowledge that you need to understand that, hey, business, investing, and real estate, specifically through real estate, is the number one way to achieve financial freedom. And that's really how I got started. I started educating myself, and I knew from the get-go, I knew I wanted to do the rental properties, and I knew I wanted to do real estate. And then the next challenge was really, how do I do that? And so I started, attending conferences and, like most people do, start getting involved. But there was actually one TV show where I learned so much knowledge, and that's Miguel Ray's Income Property. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that as well, if you guys have that.
I've seen that show. Yes, I have.
So what I actually did, guys, is I took each and every single episode and I wrote down all of the numbers, and I analyzed all of Scott Miguel Ray's deals. And the reason I did this, because he actually invests, I'm from, Toronto, Canada. And so he was actually investing in similar areas, similar neighborhoods. And so what I did was I had, at the end of the day, all of these properties with all of the cash flow numbers, with all of the numbers. And I saw what worked, what didn't, what were the challenges in the renovation, etc. And so, once I had enough knowledge where I was like, okay, I'm ready to do this, the next challenge I had was, how am I going to come up with the down payment money? And I think that's the number one challenge that most people, most investors, especially whether you're a beginner or even more seasoned, because really capital, you always need capital to grow. But the thing is that I didn't realize you could use other people's money. And that was the breakthrough moment for me, because at that time, even though, I went to university, I climbed the corporate ladder. I actually had a six-figure job, which I recently quit. I was an IT project manager. So I had that dream job that everybody wants, and I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't passionate. And even with that job, guys, is very difficult to come up with the down payment, after taxes, after savings, after bills, day in, day out. And especially if I wanted to, acquire more and more properties. And so at that time I was reading online that you could actually borrow money. And I found that there's all sorts of ways that you could borrow money. And one of the ways that I borrowed is the 5%. So, the minimum that you could put down at that time. You can even put down, less, like 3.5% through an FHA loan in the States. Here is 5%. And I actually borrowed that money through a loan. I put that down for my first property. I built a basement apartment with the renovation funds that I got from the mortgage. It's called a 203K mortgage or a purchase plus mortgage. And I use that to build a basement apartment, which I rent out to this day. And I live in the main unit, and I live for free. And I was able to then go forward and keep acquiring more and more properties.
That is an amazing story. And I actually now want to go back a little bit to, like, we talk a lot about mentorship here. I think you're the first person that's told me you've actually used a television show for mentorship. That's amazing. So beyond that, how did you learn what you know, and who helped you take the steps to mentor you?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because of the internet and everything, people are just like, oh, the information's out there. I don't need anyone else's help. I can figure it out. And, I had that thought too as well. But, having a mentor and now being a mentor as well has completely changed my philosophy on that. So in a way, I guess Scott Miguel Ray was kind of like my mentor, in addition to some of these other, Robert Kiyosaki and some of these other bigger players. At that time, I was, one of the challenges that I had is I didn't have like a complete system where I could follow step by step to teach me all of this kind of stuff. And so I actually purchased a lot of courses and all this stuff, and I found there was like bits and pieces, and no one would give you everything you needed. And even the books, they're really good at the strategy level, but they don't dig deep into the step by step by step. So actually I did a lot through trial and error, and actually the methodology that I follow now and the strategy that I follow now is something that I ended up doing myself through trial and error, which is, the small multifamily room rental approach, which I figured out was, the only true way to generate several thousands in profit per month in cash flow, with a relative low investment.
Wow, that's incredible. And if you look at your business now, how it's transformed over the years, how has it evolved and where you are today?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's crazy. I started with, like I said, just a borrowed initial investment of $30K. So that borrowed 30,000 has allowed me to own 1.4 million in real estate. I've realized over $770,000 in earned income through appreciation and cash flow. And I continue to use this to scale my portfolio. And now I'm actually working with several joint venture partners and other partners who now, I've seen my results and see my success and want to invest. And actually, one of those people is, family and friends who before were completely against the idea of buying rental properties, buying real estate and borrowing money. And now, for example, my parents are coming to me and they're like, how can we invest with you?
It's amazing. Good.
So it goes full circle.
Way. So, and if you look at now, you've done something that people talk about a lot, but it's so hard to do. You've transitioned from a full-time job to being now a full-time real estate investor. What was it, or what point was it that you said, okay, I'm done. I'm going full-time into real estate. And how did your wife take it?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know what, guys, like, I always thought that I needed to hit a magic number to quit my job. So I mentioned I had this like dream 6-figure job. To be honest, it was incredibly stressful. I was also kind of like a consultant contractor, and I specialize, in project management, which I actually use a lot today in my projects for renovations and all of that kind of stuff. So that skill was definitely useful. I wasn't passionate about it, but I climbed the corporate ladder and made good money. And I realized like I could stick at that job. And I was at that job for 5 years, by the way. I could stick at that job, but my lifestyle was suffering. My family was suffering because I would just come home. I would be working on deals, renovations. We actually did a lot of renovations ourselves to save sweat equity, especially at the beginning when you don't have much and you're learning. Like we've saved easily $50,000, house hacking our first house just by doing a lot of renovations and all of that kind of stuff. And then it just wears you down. And literally my family life suffered. I suffered. I got burnt out. And then ultimately I was at the point where, it was really only when I picked up my second multifamily duplex where I discovered this room rental approach that I was able to generate enough cash flow where I covered I was living for free, and I covered all of my living expenses through rental properties. And at that point I was like, hey, I can quit and I can focus now more on growing I don't need to stay at this job. Yes, I could save more money and all the other stuff, but it was a realization to me that money in itself didn't matter. Money is a vehicle. It's a tool for trade. And I was trading my time. And so I could slog it in the office for another couple of years and accumulate, a couple more tens of thousands, but I was trading my time. Also, I have a baby on the way, due in a couple of weeks, my first baby. So I knew that I want to spend time with my family. I knew that I had enough passive income where I'll cover the bills. And I knew if I focus now full time, I can go from $1 million to 10 million to 100 million and to, hundreds of thousands of passive cash flow. And then also one of the things I focus on right now is like you guys, I have my own podcast, I have my own show, YouTube channel, all this stuff. And I'm like, really my passion, my day job right now is sharing the knowledge, helping other people, being involved in the community, because that's my passion. That's what I love doing.
That's great.
That's amazing. All of that is so amazing.
What significant impact are you working on right now that is a learning experience that you're trying to transition through to ramp up your business to this 10x, 100x approach?
It's all about, and you know what? It's not even just this business, any business, all about systemizing and automation. And how do I get myself, out of the business and working on the business and not in the business? So one of the things I did right off the bat is I have, a construction crew, that I can manage, and I've developed a really good relationship with them. And, one of the things is it doesn't matter when you're at level 1 or level 10 is building your all-star team. That's something that I've really realized and now I'm focusing on. And so I had, a team that I've been working with. And now that I realize like some of those players in that team aren't going to get me to that 10x level. Right. And they say your network is your net worth, and you really have to surround yourself and build that all-star team. And so now I'm working with, brokers and other people that it's not for a lot of times, when you're starting out, you start investing personally. Now I'm getting to corporate side. I really want everything in the corporation. I want to have a triple corporate structure. I want to start making creating my own property management company at some point, hiring employees, et cetera, et cetera. So to this day, I've been and I still am like a one-man show. And even doing it one man, I've managed to automate like 90%. And that's the really beauty thing about rental properties and passive income is like the rent checks come every month. So aside from me filling vacancies and, once it's built and done, there's really not a lot of management. But now I'm thinking, okay, well, if I'm going to get to that 10x level, I need a 10x team to get me there. I need people who can get me mortgages under my corporation. I need joint venture partnerships. I need this, I need that. I need tax specialists who know this stuff, because what I've noticed, I started outgrowing my team. And that's when you need to get to the next level.
What was the first thing you automated?
Yeah, I think that construction, right off the bat, when we did that first one and I was doing a lot of the renovations myself, that was the first thing. I was like, all right, we saved a ton of money. Now we have another property and I'm going to, use the equity. That's one of the tricks, is using the equity to get the next properties and so forth. And, I've kind of have a system where I almost, it's kind of like the BRRR strategy. If you guys are familiar, most people are familiar with that, which is, buy, renovate, rent out, refinance, repeat, right? And so I realized, that first one was the contractors. And actually, I think one of the hardest challenges in real estate is finding a good construction crew and good contractors to do the work, especially if you need a scale. And so I was, when I was doing the second property, again, we started doing a lot of the stuff ourselves. And I'm like, you know what, I need to hire out, but I need to find someone good. Because I actually had a crew on my first property that I worked. They were a big company, excellent reviews, all this stuff, but they botched the job. It went from a 6-week timeline to 6 months, and wow. They used subpar materials. And I actually had to get them to demolish all of the tile work they did in the bathroom because the subcontractors they used were, subpar and all this stuff. And so, just for the listeners out there, even if you're starting on your first deal or whatever, don't take Homestar reviews or online reviews at face value. Always do testimonials, referrals, pictures, all this stuff, and actually avoid using big companies, because I know that I'll get ripped off. I know that unless I'm spending $1 million renovation, I'm not their top priority. They have hundreds of customers. What I like to do is I like to build my own team. So I actually found a general contractor within the areas. And I got them to actually manage the whole thing for me. And I end up spending about half of what I do now than what I did before.
That's great.
Such great information.
How did you have that conversation with that general contractor to get them to manage the project?
Yeah. So, and surprisingly, guys, like you won't even believe where I found, some of my crew and some of the contractors, but I actually found them on, Kijiji or Craigslist or whatever. And so, I got their references. I saw they did good work, and specifically this one general contractor, does very good work. And I got all the references and everything. And actually he was connected within all of the areas. He knew all of the other contractors. So I don't have to go and find 10 different contractors. He'll do all that for me. And I just sat him down. I said, look, we're going to do one job here. And actually I did a completely different structure than I normally would do in the big company. I paid them by the hour and I hired them by the week. I didn't give them the entire job up front because I wanted to test them. And I said, hey, if you guys do a good job, we're going to start with whatever, demolition, kitchen, whatever. If you guys do a good job at each step of this stage, I'm going to keep you guys. And not only that, I'm going to use you guys, going forward. And I want to develop a relationship. Like for me, business, real estate investing, entrepreneurship, it's all about developing relationships. I don't want the one and done deal, So I told him, you don't have to give me even your best price. Give me a fair price that you're comfortable with. Do good work. And if you prove to me that this is good, and after this first deal, then I have full-time work for you, not only for myself, but I'll spread the message to other investors in my area, et cetera, et cetera. And, even though I wouldn't recommend somebody doing that right away, I still had a contract and all of that kind of stuff, it's a good way to test new people and give them a chance. And now, I actually, like, even though I property manage the properties myself, actually I manage them through my contractor. So if anything goes wrong, I just send him a text message saying, hey, you need to go to this property, check on this, or do this. And then, he'll manage with the other contractors too. So I really think like finding a good contractor, especially GC, and good, good crew is one of the most important things, to 10Xing to that next level.
What a great way to test a new contractor, though. I've never heard that. That was a great way to you actually systematize how you find a good contractor. I mean, it sounds a little time intensive for everybody that's listening, but it makes sense. And think of all the money that you're going to save on a bad contractor. Because
much less time efficient than actually losing 6 months because you have the wrong contractor. So
exactly.
We enjoy that. That's awesome.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, and just before we get to that, just to even add to that, the crazy thing is it's going to take you more time up front. But like I said, I'm all about the relationship. So now that I know this guy, I don't need to go and get 3 quotes for every job. I don't need to go. And getting quotes is like pulling teeth, right? You have to get the guys to come there to give you all the quotes. Now I have my crew, and I know my crew is going to give me a better deal than all the other guys too. And I know that they do good work. So I don't even have to do all the quotes and all that kind of stuff. I just get him. He gives me what the price is. I already know it's a good deal, and I just run with it.
That's great.
So what has been your biggest challenge you faced in real estate? What did you learn from it, and how did you rebound?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the biggest challenge is, 2 things. And I think as investors, we always come out with these 2 things, which is raising capital, using other people's money, and getting the financing, right? And I think those 2 things are, what you need to master to get to that 10X level, right? Because you're always going to be limited to the amount of money you have, whether that's, $1 million or 10 million in your bank. You can only do so much with your money. The only way to 10X and exponentially grow is use other people's money. And so I mentioned that at the first time I figured out I could borrow money. The second time I figured out that I could use equity to refinance. So I'll always have an ongoing form of credit that I could use to purchase properties. And the third way was through the joint venture partnerships. And partnering with other people and partnering with investors. And I think that the JV people come into real estate, and like I did, thinking, okay, I don't have money, I'm going to find a joint venture partner right away. And like that strategy is not good when you're starting out. That strategy is good when you have a portfolio, when you have rental properties, and you have results, so that people will come to you and say, hey, show me your properties. Any joint venture partner, I show them all my properties. I pull the reports. I show them all my numbers. I show them everything. And then I say, do you want this type of return? Do you want 30% ROI plus? Do you want to get all your money back, within a year? Do you want to cash flow several $1,000s in profit a month? And so by doing that, I don't have to qualify myself. I don't have to prove to myself, to the joint venture partners saying, hey, why should I invest with you? And, at the beginning, I thought that, I just need to find other people with money, but it doesn't really work that way if you don't have the money. The best is, getting in small, starting, developing a portfolio from yourself, and then really finding other people. So a lot of my time right now actually spent doing those two things. Raising capital, getting the financing, and looking for deals. And ultimately, that is the skill that you have as an investor, right? That's really like the number one skill that you have. And that's why you're an expert, right? And so I'm an expert joint venture partner. I find people with the money, I find silent money partners, and I go, 50-50 with them, and I'm the expert and I do all the work for them. It's a completely hands-off experience, and they want to invest with me.
Nice.
What would you consider your best deal to date?
The first property that I house hacked and that I still have, that first property for me, if I made the mistake, if I didn't go with that first property, and I'll tell you guys, I actually want to give you a little bit more details about this first property, because it's just an interesting story. How it all happened is that if I didn't take this leap of faith and borrowed that first 30,000 and done what I did with it, I wouldn't be here today, guys. I wouldn't be here with, 7-figure portfolio. I wouldn't be having passive income, and I wouldn't be here sharing the story. I really wouldn't, because that was what really got me started. So that first property, right, at that time, and this is a lot of, as an investor, you have to think in the future, right? This is a long-term game. At least what I do. I do rental property, I do buy and hold, passive income, and other people, there's all sorts of other strategies, right? So what I know is that it's a long-term game. And really, with that first property, by house hacking, by living in one unit and renovating the other one, I was able to live for free and create income. But so by doing this, how did I find this first property? So at that time, I wanted to be relatively close to the city. So I live in Toronto. Toronto is one of the most expensive real estate markets in the world, like next to California, Tokyo, and New York. We're right up there. So, I had everything stacked against me in the sense of like, how was I even going to buy property here? So what I look for is the trends that are coming up, and I look at the suburbs and the neighborhoods that are outside of that area, but that will eventually be eclipsed by the growing population. And so I do all sorts of economic research analysis before I even look at a property. And so I identified this one area, which was around 30 minutes away from downtown, from the city. And it was the last place that you could buy a detached bungalow on a nice piece of land. It was the last place in the city that you can buy for a reasonable price. And I actually got it off a probate sale. So the person passed away, their family was sending, the real estate agent was out of town, so he had no idea what it was worth. They overpriced it. It sat on the market for 90 days. I saw 20 properties in one day, and that was the last property we saw. And as soon as we walked in, it was a gut job, but me and my wife looked at each other. We're like, this is it. This is it. It had a walkout to the backyard. It had a big land. It has a huge backyard. It backs onto a ravine. And right now, so we bought that property for $400,000. We got it for about 30 or 40 under asking. So we bought it for $400,000. Right now, that property is worth over $900,000, and it will be eventually $1 million because they're putting over $1 million in our neighborhood. So from that one property, I have earned over like $500,000 in appreciation. Use that part of that to get my second property and all of that stuff. But it was that foresight, and that area was considered a bad area. It was considered a time ago was considered, a rough neighborhood, and that's how areas are. There's a rough neighborhood by a good neighborhood. And it was the worst house on the best neighborhood kind of thing. And the fact that we completely fixed it up, renovated, turned it into a legal duplex, which also increased the value a lot. I mean, really, I wouldn't be able to do it if I didn't do it with that first property. And that's kind of a lesson learned. What I look for other properties, I always look at areas that are outside of something that has already exploded, that's already gotten hot, because I know that it will expand naturally.
That's awesome. I love that. If you could do anything else besides being an entrepreneur, what would you do?
Oh man, I don't, you know what? I don't think that there's anything, aside from being an entrepreneur, I don't like, that's my calling. It's always been my calling. I tried the day job. I tried trading time for money, and that ultimately isn't it. And that's, if I can give one piece of advice for everyone listening, think about the lifestyle that you want to live. Right? My lifestyle is, I want to spend time with my family. I want to travel. I want to have passive income. I want to do what I'm passionate about, what I'm excited about. Like, I'm so excited to be here today. That's what you should strive to do in your life. If you're not doing that, regardless of whether you're getting paid or not, if you're not doing that, you're not living life to the full extent. But the best part about being an entrepreneur is getting paid to do that. Right. And ultimately, once you're paid, you can dedicate more time, more resources into it, and continue to grow and continue to scale and ultimately help other people. I think also in our life, in our society, especially in North America, we're very me-centric, me-dominant, whereas you should also think of, how am I going to help other people? And even in real estate, through rental properties, we are helping other people. I help other people by giving affordable housing, and they're able to rent by the bedroom and save half the amount of money and have an amazing place with fantastic renovations. So it's all about, doing what excites you, doing what you're passionate, and helping other people, and ultimately profiting enough where, ideally passively, where you don't have to trade time for dollars.
What amazing value there. How can you give value to other people?
Yeah, I love that.
That's great. So I have a really important question to ask you right now. If you had to battle a monster, what weapon would you use?
Battle a monster.
Let's say Godzilla.
Okay, what weapon I'd use? Well, ultimately, though, it's an interesting question, but I'd almost like to, even challenge that question, is like, I would try not to even use a weapon. Because really, as humans, our number one, we're always looking for the medium, right? Mm-hmm. We're always looking for that tool, right? What's the next best tool? What's the next best trick? What's the next best this? The only thing that's important is right here. That's, at the end of the day, that's the only thing that's important in our brain. So ultimately, I'm more intelligent than the monster. So I would figure out a more intelligent way. It might not even have to be a weapon to essentially outsmart that monster. And that's what you're doing in life. That's what you're doing. And really, I think that like most humans, we really are not utilizing like 90% of our brain power. And I'm sure that there are other things in our brain that we haven't even unlocked yet. But it's that constant, drive to get better, to develop, and to grow that will, ultimately, you can really have anything you want in this world. It's just your brain is your only limitation.
So your weapon is your mind.
Love it.
Yeah.
And being an IT person, let's take this one more step. What's a tech trick or an app that's essential to your business?
That's a really good question. I love technology. I love apps. I love these.
Yep.
Yeah, I love these little things. One of the things that I use day in, day out when analyzing property is an app called Deal Check. It's, you can pay either monthly for or whatever. And, I don't own the company or anything like that, but it's one of the things that has saved me time and time again, because within 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes, really at this point, it's a matter of seconds. I can do it. I can analyze a property and I'll tell you if it's going to be profitable or not. Now, obviously, with an app like that, it has assumptions, and you need to put those assumptions in to make sure that you're feeding the right information. But as a real estate investor, you automatically know how much things cost to renovate, how much rent they're going to generate, in the area, et cetera, et cetera. So within 30 seconds, I can walk into a place, I can use this app, and I can just literally put it in, and I'll exactly know how much it's going to profit, plus minus 10, 20%. And Deal Check I would recommend for anyone starting out, and whether you are someone starting or an investor, I found that this app quickly allows you to quickly look through all the kind of deals.
Is it flip friendly and rental friendly, or is it vice versa?
It's both. It's both flip and rental. They're, they always come up with improvements. So I saw they came out with even more improvements. They actually connect now to the MLS through Zillow. So you could literally import the property from there and grab all the numbers. You don't have to put in the numbers yourself if you don't want to. And then the other thing is it creates really nice reports. So I use these reports for my JV partners, and it looks super professional. You can, remove their logo, put your own logo on it, and now you look like a big company brand with this nice fancy spreadsheet with, time calculations and income calculations and how your net worth is growing over a 10, 20-year period. Like, it's fascinating.
Wow, you just saved our listeners so much time. I'm already putting it into my phone right now. That was awesome. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. I'm trying to find it now.
So talking about a JV partner, tell us how you structure a deal. And it could be an arbitrary deal or a deal you've done in the past. What would be a way that you like to put together a deal?
So this is just the app if anybody wants to see.
Very cool.
It's really cool. In terms of the JVs, it's a good question, and it's something before you even sit down with a JV, you need to ask yourself. And this is what I asked myself, because I actually have many different people coming to me, and I don't do all the deals, even if they have the money. The number one thing before you start is, do you want to work with this person? Is this person pleasant to be around?
Yeah.
Is this person going to try to micromanage you? Is this person going to be a pain in your ass? You know what I mean?
Yes.
If I don't like working with a person and I'm not happy working with them, and I don't enjoy even just talking to them like we're doing right now, like, I won't work with them, regardless of if they have the money or not. Because JV is like a marriage, right? It's like you're marrying your business partner, and no matter how good your contracts are, no matter how good the profits are, that relationship could quickly, quickly become a problem if one of the person doesn't have the same kind of mentality or approach. So that's the first thing I look at, and that's the first, I have questions that I ask them before I even work with them. What's your long-term strategy? What are your plans? Are you a hands-on investor? Are you hands-off investor, et cetera, et cetera. So what I try to find is a silent money JV partner. And I just tell them this: hey, I'm the expert. I'm going to determine basically the decisions on what we're going to do in terms of the property. And you bring me the money, and we're going to partner that way. And we're going to split it 50-50. And, a lot of people at first, they might think, hey, splitting it 50-50, man, I'm putting all the money and I only get 50%. But I actually think that the part where the expert comes in is worth even more than 50. I think it's worth more than money, because everybody has money, right? And you can find anybody with money. That's nothing special. What's special is the person who can take that money and create endless amounts of passive income and even get that money back. And that's a skill most people don't have. That's a skill only a real full-time real estate investor has, or even, somebody with lots of experience. So money is out there, guys. So just because somebody offers you the money doesn't mean that you should or you want to work with them. So I've actually had a couple of joint ventures where they have endless amount of capital, and I haven't worked with them because the splits are too small. I don't like their style or something like that. And like, I remember I came back to the lifestyle, right? Like everything about the lifestyle. So, more money is always great, but not if it's going to sacrifice the lifestyle that I want to live. So if somebody's going to be trying to call me and micromanage me, like, that's why I left my job, right?
Exactly.
That's why I left. So it's really a marriage, a partnership, a relationship, long-term. And I tell them, this isn't about one deal. This is about 10 deals. This is about, legacy. This is about having something, when we die, to hand over to our kids, right? That's what I'm about when I come to real estate investing and partnerships. Not about, I'm going to get you this one deal, you're going to make money, and we're never going to see each other again.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Well, we just have a few more questions, and thank you so much. So what is your big why?
Yeah, my big why is back on that lifestyle, back on having the freedom, right? I think that school, education, university, society, they all think that, and they teach you when you're growing up that, go to school, get a job, and, get a mortgage and retire. And I think that is fundamentally flawed. Even the concept of retirement, I actually think is flawed. I think the whole concept of retirement is flawed. Like, why would you want to do nothing? And you see that all the time. Like, why would you're going to work your whole life so that when you're 60 or 70 one day, so you can do nothing? I want to be able to do what I want to do now, and I don't want to have to retire. I want to create my own schedule. I want to spend time with my family. So that's a big part of my why. I want to spend time with my family. I want to do what I love, which is, talking about real estate, podcasts, all this kind of stuff. That's my why. I want to wake up excited. And too many people think that, I want to do this so that I can sit on the beach and not do anything. And I want to tell you that if you're not going to do anything, you're going to get bored very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be happy. You're not going to be living a life of excitement. You're going to get depressed. So you have to have, like you said, greater why, greater purpose, but also something that I think that is greater than you yourself, that is creating a legacy, helping other people, et cetera, et cetera. And so, yeah, my why is a lot about family, having the lifestyle, the freedom. And that 6-figure job told me it's not about the money. The money is just a tool to get back your time. The most important thing is your time. You can never buy more time. And we only have a limited amount of time on this planet. And I want to spend it doing the things I love. That's simple as that.
Nice.
Awesome. I love
So
it.
do you have a morning routine? And if so, what is it?
Oh man. So I'm actually because now, so I've only been, full-time investor for, 4 or 5 months now. So it's still relatively new to me. And I'm also a very spontaneous person. I'm not a type of person, who will be very, very strict, but, I still have an alarm clock. I still get up, check my emails, all that kind of stuff. But the one thing that I found that helped me a lot as a full-time investor, because it's so easy, guys, it's so easy to just blow your time on Facebook, social media, especially if you're trying to run a business on there or whatever. It's so easy to blow your time. So what I do is I just have a list every single day, and I say, this is my must to do that I want to accomplish today, where I'll feel happy that if I accomplish this today, and I'll try to cross off at least one big thing, and I'll prioritize it in the list of what's the one thing, that's gonna 10x me or get me, what is the one thing? And I honestly, even if you just focus on that one thing. And the other thing I found is that I actually enjoy doing different sorts of things. So I don't like doing the same thing day in, day out. You know what I mean? So, and I don't like having a strict routine and stuff like that. But, having a to-do list really helps. Staying committed and focused on what your goals are. Goal setting is huge. And it's you think about how much time in school they spend goal setting, what it was one class in senior year. Goal setting should be taught every single day in school. Exactly. That's what we should be learning in school, not, memorizing, right? Memorizing, that's useless. We have the internet for that, right? And so goal setting is something that I look at on a weekly, monthly, annual basis. And I think it's something, something so basic that people skip. And as a project manager, I'll tell you, if you don't have a plan, you're going to fail. You need a plan, right? And you need scope. You need to know your scope. You need to know your schedule. You need to know your budget, right? As simple as that is. And that's the great thing about that day job, which has allowed me is really focusing down on that plan and getting to where I want. The other thing, I try to work out every day or try to do some physical activity. I go to 2 walks a day, go outside, get some fresh air, don't just sit inside all day and stick to a computer and all that kind of stuff. And I guess that's it.
That's great.
It's great. It's all great information. I mean, just what you said, basically, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right?
Yeah.
Sve, what are some words you live by?
Some words I live by. There's really good, powerful quote, guys. I want to share a really powerful quote. This one, it really changed it for me. And that's why I quit my job, actually. This one quote: you are responsible for your own happiness. Great. And it took a while for me to sink in what that meant. But that means that if you're not happy in your current situation, whatever that be, whether that's your wealth, your health, your happiness, your job, whatever, your spouse, your partner, or whatever, you are responsible for that. And when you take ownership, saying, I am responsible, the problem with society, especially that I see with young people our age, like millennials coming in, is it's so much easier to blame other people. It's so much easier to blame my boss, blame my job, blame this, blame that. When you take responsibility, you give yourself permission and you give yourself really the power. That's what people need. They need the power to, that's why mindset is number one. We can talk about tactics all day long, but mindset is number one. You need to give yourself the power to say, hey, I'm responsible for this. And it's something that I think about every day. If I'm not happy about something, we all get unhappy. We all get depressed. We all get, certain feelings of why we're not growing or and it's like, ultimately, you are responsible for your happiness. You can change that. And it's empowering when somebody tells me, you're responsible. People automatically at the beginning, they think, oh, that's bad. I don't like bad. It's like, it's actually empowering. It will allow you to be happy, because if you don't ever take that responsibility for your own happiness, you're never really going to be happy. And happiness, there's many things that come into that, happiness and all of that kind of stuff. And, there's all sorts of happiness that we can talk about, but really understanding that you and no one else are responsible for your own happiness.
Wow.
Incredible.
That is empowering.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah. I mean, just being, we talk about that a lot, but just having that in those words, be responsible for your happiness. Everyone listen to that. Be responsible for your happiness. Thank you for that. Thank you so much.
So Sve, if people want to get in touch with you, hear a little bit more about your business, what's the best way to find you?
Yeah, so you can check out my website. I'm on rentalhacking.com, and I have blogs and all sorts of things and podcasts and all sorts of things people can look at. But I urge anyone who's interested in getting started, don't know, I have a free web class, and every few weeks I go live on this free web class, and I explain to them basically the entire strategy, how I was able to get from nothing to 7-figure portfolio. And so you can go to rentalhacking.com/webclass. And you can sign up there for the free web class. And then I'm also on, YouTube, Sve Pavic, Facebook under Rental Hacking, and Instagram and all that kind of stuff. So I'm all over social media, sharing all sorts of tidbits and tricks and all the little things I'm learning on the field.
Amazing.
Well,
That's
thank
great.
you for all of your value today, Sve. This has been an amazing podcast. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Jason and Pili, for having me. I love what you guys are doing with the REI Foundation. I love you guys together as a couple, as well as a power couple. I mean, that's so awesome as well. And my wife wasn't an entrepreneur, and now she totally gets it. I'm always trying to get her involved, but she's not as involved, as you guys are. But I love what you guys are doing here, and thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you so
again,
much.
Sve. So this is the REI Foundation Podcast with Jason Pili. Again, thank you so much to Sve Pavic, and thank you to you. So grateful to you for listening. Have a great day.
Thanks for tuning into the REI Foundation Podcast. Check back next time for more awesome tips and strategies to launch your new you in real estate.